Welcome to the Comfortable in Chaos Podcast. Strangle your demons and let's go.
Y'all need Jesus!
Oh, Canada, our home and native land. Welcome to the Comfortable in Chaos Podcast. I am your host, Eric Hellberg, and you know we're like Einstein over here, men. We're passionately curious, devoid of special talents. We just want to know how in the hell did we get here? And where is it that we are planning to go? Of course, I started off with the national anthem of Canada because it's my way of saying thanks. It is a hardy nation. It is a great nation. It is a ginormous nation. But just like our nation, under that Marxist Trudeau and our decrepit Joe Biden, they want to hold the people at bay. I tell you what, this may create some Canadian aghastness. The word aghast, I added ness, maybe not a real word, but you get the gist. America and Canada are knee deep in Ukraine. There's some profound similarities, some profound facts, and some profound differences. But let me just tell you, I think Canadians are incredibly durable and strong people. Look at the Great White North, as we always heard it called. Second largest country in the entire world behind Russia. 80% of its population lives within 80 miles of our border. Very concentric. That means that land is vast and wild, untamed, almost yet unexplored. And in some ways, it's very similar to Russia. These are hardy people. I'm going to tell you, since that special military operation that Russia launched out of necessity in Ukraine in 2022, did you know that Canadians have been on the ground there in Ukraine? Trudeau's not going to talk about it. He keeps his people in prison just like ours do, but he unleashes things with reckless abandon. And I am going to develop this into an episode and show you some of these parallels. It's no different than us dispatching Lieutenant General Aguto earlier this year to go ahead and take care of Ukraine's armed forces because of their own ineptness from within. So what did we do? Oh, we sent one of our kind of sinister plotting, planning guys. And what did he do? Well, that led to a great deal of civilian casualties. And I will develop that episode and I will tie both us and Canada into it. But we're in the same predicament, guys. Just like we want Joe gone, you want Trudeau gone. But I wanted to thank you for the uptick in listenership in the Great White North. I have a fondness and a great respect for you guys. I'd love for one of you guys, when you're liking, reviewing, subscribing to the show, send me some commentary. I also have a buddy up there who does his own podcast, albeit he does it under a pseudonym because of Canada being what it is. If he gets too demonstrative, and really in this day and age now with you guys, even if he just talks a little bit out of line, and he has a religious-based show, and we know that Trudeau has tried to stamp out religion, but he can't take you guys' souls up there, you Canadians' great souls. Trudeau is a godless man. He is a Marxist man, much akin to us. We have many parallels. But I would love to have me some new Canadian beer to drink. And the last couple of times I had that Fin du Monde, I did believe it was the end of the world. But this is just a profound thank you, Canada. Thank you again. Now, let's move on, guys. Yeah, recently I was having a discussion with a dude, and we got to talking about Ukraine, of course, because we're a little bit like-minded on that. And he kind of runs in that world. Let's just say current military operations. And he asked me, he's like, Eric, do you think, it doesn't look like we're going to stop supplying money and weapons to Ukraine. I believe we are. But he said, since it doesn't look like that, do you think Putin's afraid of Biden? And I just said, F no, dude. Are you friggin' kidding me? Now, of course, he was saying that symbolically. He knows Putin's not afraid of Biden. And all I simply told him was, yeah. Oh, yeah. I think here Vladimir Putin, accomplished man, an outdoorsman, black belt in judo, former intelligence, not only an intelligence operative, but he ran the ops. I probably believe he could probably be a chess master. He is a strategic planner, but above all, he loves his country. Wouldn't you give anything for a leader who simply loves his country? Can we have one of those, please? Jimmy Carter, God bless his soul. I know he's on hospice care. He's 99 right now. Up until when Joe came into the picture, he was considered the worst president. And I know that Jimmy Carter is probably going to go spend eternal rest with the Lord. I believe he is a good man. I just think he was a misguided man. Naval vet, the whole 9 yards. And I don't think he has much time left. But I wish if we could interview Jimmy Carter in the epitome of health after the presidency, he would probably be so happy because Joe Biden had arrived on the scene to supplant him as the worst president ever. But back to the question about Putin fearing us. I said, F no, dude. I said, are you kidding me? Joe Biden just had another cabinet meeting. I think it was day before. Yeah, it was over the weekend. And in order to achieve this cabinet meeting, they found Joe, and he was kind of moving around in that, it's sad, but really he was moving around in that demented shuffle. And the cabinet meeting only had one person in it. It was still just Joe Biden. His cabinet was not going to be there. And during the cabinet meeting, we know that Joe spoke to one of his bookcases, and I believe he had an argument with his desk. That is Joe Biden's cabinet meeting. And why in the hell, when Russian conscripts are still issued the traditional one pood 33-pound kettlebell to us, hand-forged steel, for two guys to work with? These guys would rather eat wood than submit. We wouldn't have won World War II without them. Why would those guys fear us? When in order to get someone recruited into the U.S. Army these days, I think they have to offer them a PlayStation 4. They've already lowered the physical fitness standards again. And I don't know what else you got to do. They got to pull these guys off the couch with consoles and maybe send them off to basic training or to MEPS with a bag of Cheetos, and they're already such fat asses. Are you kidding me? That guy's not afraid of Jack. All right, let's move on from that. I had to answer that question unequivocally. But what I think is kind of funny, and what I was thinking, I saw a new Hamas propaganda poster. And it was posted on an online forum that I kind of exchange information with from time to time. Do you know what these guys have on there? They now have a Hamas terrorist standing above a woman. You can see that now this is a drawing, it is a rendition, a jagged knife that has ripped open her belly. The Hamas terrorist with the umbilical cord still attached is holding the baby up by a foot with a knife to its throat as it is getting ready to execute it. We forget that on October 7th that people were burned alive, gang raped, brutally tortured. Israel is going to be unceasing in reclaiming all the remains of the people taken hostage. And I'm just going to tell you, there is no moral equivalency here. You forget that we're dealing with barbaric animals. And that poster, why would they do that? Because their people love it. It gets them fired up. It should make us want to, rich. Israel is just. Israel is right. Why in the hell, when we were attacked, right? That was the initial genesis for the global war on terror. But then we went for 20-something odd years, and I never saw people protesting and looking for the rights of the Taliban. After all this time, were we not concerned with the Taliban's children or the Taliban's wives or the little boys that the Taliban like to fondle and do worse with? Where were all of our protesters and people so concerned about the Taliban? But for some reason, they are concerned about Hamas, the Palestinians, the people of Gaza. And this thing has only been going on a few months. What's the problem, people? I think the problem lies simply in the fact that they are Jews. Yeah, I said it. And the Bible says that the Jews are God's chosen people. Now, whether you believe in old law, new law, we know that at one time in the Old Testament that God made covenant with the Jewish race. Now, if you believe it was abolished once Christ came, or if you believe that wandering around the desert and not recognizing their Lord above, despite miracles, abolished the covenant, thereby God issued them a decree of divorce, that's up for debate. But I will tell you that God keeps all of his promises, unlike man. He is faithful. So that is why they are hated so. And isn't it interesting? The closer to the true God that a people is, or are to be grammatically correct, the more people will hold them in disdain. And therefore is the impetus for your protesters. So I say go get them, Israel, and they are. It kind of harkens back to the 72 Munich Games. Who was that? That was Black September, I believe they called themselves back then. Really just another group of Palestinian terrorists. Broke into the Olympic Village. Really, they had scouted out the Israelis' apartment building. Security was lax. 10 days had already gone by uneventfully in the Olympic Village. And in the Olympic Games, they were actually pronounced the Goodwill Games. So that's when the Savages went in. Of course, their wrestling coach and one of their power lifters fought back. They were killed instantly. 9 others were taken captive. There was a botched rescue attempt by the West Germans. It failed miserably, and all the Israelis were killed. Well, what did the good old Prime Minister of Israel, Golda Meir, do at that time? And what did David Ben-Gurion say about Golda Meir? That she was always our best man in government. She was a badass. So she got with the Mossad, and she said, we are going to initiate our operation, and it will be called Operation Wrath of God. You went after God's people, our people. Wouldn't you love to have the U.S. do the same thing? So for 8 years, other than I think it was Abu Daoud, the mastermind behind it, over 8 years, painstakingly all over the earth, Mossad hunted down everyone affiliated with that attack. And did you know every time they caught up with one of them, they shot him 11 times for the 11 Israelis killed? That's some badass retribution, is it not? And we know that Operation Wrath of God went on for 12 more years after that, just to safeguard the Israeli people. They put them on notice. And I'll tell you what, in the past few days, we know of a new hostage rescue. And I would think that we would be hearing all about it in the U.S. We would be happy. What about all these morning talk shows? What about all the evening news? You don't want to talk about the 4 hostages that were rescued? Instead, people are talking about the Palestinians that were killed in the rescue effort. Well, the interesting thing about it, and it was a heroic rescue attempt, ultimately successful. One of the hostages was a young lady. I've seen her pictures with Benjamin Netanyahu. He's not like Biden. He went directly to the family's home after she was medically checked, released, and sat with the family, visited with her family in its entirety, expressed how grateful and heartfelt. And did you know they actually prayed together? Imagine that. But her name was Noah Argamani. The interesting thing about that hostage was that once she was abducted, she ended up at the home. And this gentleman also has a physician in his family. I believe it is his father. But they kept her locked up in their apartment, actually in a fairly affluent neighborhood for those guys. But who was her captor? Abdallah al-Jamal. And who is Abdallah al-Jamal? Well, he is a journalist. So we know these Hamas rascals may pose as a journalist, think Al Jazeera, a journalist by day. He actually was a journalist up until his untimely death by the IDF for an organization called the Palestine Chronicle. The interesting thing about the Palestine Chronicle is it is a registered 501c3 non-profit corporation within the great United States of America. We're letting them raise money over here, sending it back to them over there. No taxation, no oversight, so they can fund efforts like that. We will pose as journalists, and at night, we are a Hamas savage. So interesting. But anyways, I can tell you this too. The very fact that you were a journalist, Abdallah, and you were broadcasting, and Israel had an inclination. They have the best human in the world, certainly around the Middle East. That's how they cued in on you, my friend. That's how they found Noah. And that's how they found, because of your intercepts and correspondence between the other captors and the locations where they were holding the other 3. Anyways, the IDF found all 4. The bad part was that in their escape, their vehicle got stuck. It got stuck in an urban environment with some debris. It couldn't get out. A swarm of Palestinians were coming around them. Estimates say a couple of hundred, some say 100, maybe we'll just say 150. Well, as they were converging to kill the IDF heroes that had just rescued them, a good old Israeli IDF gunship came on the scene, Helo helicopter, and it shot the living hell out of all those people. And that's what you're hearing the complaints about, that these poor Palestinians that were going to kill the rescue force got killed themselves. Fantastic job, Israel. Keep going. My gosh, we're 20 minutes into our episode, man. I had so many other things I wanted to talk about. All right, well, I would be remiss. Let's just go to a testimony from Sarah Long, who was a hairdresser of over 40 years. This soap is the best shampoo I've ever used. It's better than any high-end shampoo I've ever used. My hair is so clean it squeaks. No residue buildup at all. I love it. 40-year veteran hairdresser using this soap as a shampoo. Did you know that this soap, and the soap I'm talking about, is called Old Country Soap? You can find them at oldcountrysoap.com. The 5-ounce bars, you can even order bigger bars if you wish. Do you know that they come with a sisal fiber bag when you order a few bars? You simply insert your soap bar into it, and what it does is it diminishes the use of the soap by creating even a richer lather. We know it is a coconut oil-based soap. We know that it has bentonite clay and that it is infused with essential oils, and people are getting incredible results from it. It is cost-effective. I and my family have used it for 2 years. Old is spelled O-L-D-E. oldcountrysoap.com. You can email the owner directly. His name is Elon. He would love to hear from you. They also make laundry soap. It is by far the best soap on the market. And I almost forgot. When you order, use our promo code CHAOS20 for 20% off. So until next time on the Comfortable and Chaos podcast, I bid you bon voyage, my burgeoning flock.